Welcome into another edition of This Week in UNC Baseball. I am Tommy Ashley. That's Grace Nugent. We are always sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, the man in the middle, head coach Scott Forbes. North Carolina wrapped their season down in Tallahassee, a smoking hot Tallahassee, especially on Saturday during the day. Coach Forbes, your team was impressive, even in the loss, I thought, and we talked about it after the game down there on the field. That was a heck of a baseball game, a heck of a series. Your main takeaways after you've had a couple of days to think about it on that series, obviously a big win and the eighth straight series for you, but just impressive baseball all around, I thought.
Yeah, my takeaway was I was proud of our guys. Go into a hard place to win. I think that's the third series we've won there since I've been involved in North Carolina since 1999. No, I left for 3 years, but Coach Fox and I were talking about it. It's very difficult to win on the road already, but there are certain places that are even more difficult. And Florida State's one of those. Good crowd, home crowd. Nobody expected us except us, in my opinion, to win that series. And we definitely expected to win the series. So our guys played like it. They played like they had something to prove. I've challenged them all year. That's how they have to play, and they do play like that. But I was proud of them, top to bottom. From when they got on that bus Saturday, they were exhausted because they left it out there, and they know that's how they have to play, and they did. And even on Saturday, we were mighty close. But to go in there and make a statement should help this group moving forward in what is about to be our most important baseball.
Yeah, with the postseason coming up, you had some opportunities. It was certainly a postseason atmosphere in Dick Howser Stadium, and that crowd was fantastic. There's always a few knuckleheads, but on the whole, it was a great atmosphere. But how much did that Saturday game, when it came down to the last few outs, and you had a guy like Cam Seagraves who had never been in that environment, I'd wager that was the toughest environment he's played in, and he probably will play in until maybe the College World Series this year if that happens. But how big of that is to get that guy and get those guys that type of experience right before you jump into, like you say, the most important part of the season?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was not just for him. Like you look at Tyson Bass, Kane Kepley, Sawyer Black, a lot of these guys, that haven't played besides Gavin, Luke, Ahmad. Obviously, Vandy played not as much last year. That haven't been in that type of environment. That was another thing that I was really looking forward to see how they handle that environment. They handled it extremely well. So that, you don't know until you get in an environment like that. And that's what I was excited about. And our guys definitely passed the test. But even though it's going to be at home in the postseason, hopefully until, if we're fortunate enough to get to Omaha, it's still a bigger situation, right? Like this is a big situation for the guys, the biggest of the year so far. They're not dumb. They know that, whoever wins this series might be considered one of the top teams in the country, could potentially lock up a national seed, the winner of that series. We didn't talk about that stuff, but these kids have cell phones. They're on that stuff way more than I am, probably more than you are, Tommy, at our age. Not saying that we're old, but we're not young. So I was most excited when I looked at the schedule early and said, okay, I like this group. It's going to take us a little while probably to get where where they discover exactly who we are and we get to where we need to be. We're still not there, but you got NC State at home, which is going to be a big series. And then you go to Florida State where there could be a lot on the line. And, to go in there on that day, Saturday, with a chance to sweep, we would have loved to have won the ACC regular season. Don't get me wrong, but putting guys in different situations, sometimes those losses, I wouldn't say sometimes, all the time, you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. So we'll use that last game to teach us some things and learn from it, and hopefully be able to win that game next time when we take the lead in the eighth inning.
Do you think this entire series is kind of emblematic of this team's identity as a whole? They come down as the underdog. They punch Florida State in the mouth for 2 games, and then they try their hardest with a little bit the different flavors of baseball that they have to win on Saturday. Do you think this is really the bookend that you think this team needed for the end of the regular season?
Well, we talk about all the time the rat poison, not looking at the rankings, but sometimes, as Coach Saban says, the rat poison can be that yummy rat poison. So obviously everybody did say that we were going to lose. And this group, at the end of the day, they believe they're going to win. And they completely bought into being process oriented. They completely have bought into preparing for the next game, moving on. We talked about it. Even if we don't want an ACC championship, that's really not what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, I know people may not want to hear that. That's great. But the ultimate goal is to try to put yourself in position to win a national championship. And how do you do that? You do it the same way, even if you'd have won Saturday, if you hadn't have won. So this team, they buy into that, and they do a good job. They're well led. We sat down with some of the older guys. I did on the plane. We mapped out the week. We have a plan to be ready for Friday, and that's all we're focusing on. But we also want to have a lot of fun because realistically, a lot of these guys are going to be gone. And I'm going to miss them. So I'm trying to be around them as much as I can. We're not just practicing. We're not just lifting. We're having team meals. We're going to Frankie's tomorrow. We're going to do things that these guys hopefully will remember the rest of their lives. But we're also going to be ready to go on Friday.
We talk a lot about, what's happening on the field and the scores in the record book, in the box score, but especially these last few weeks and ending in an environment like Florida State and your road series and the state series. What do you think that says to the emotional mettle of your team? Because there's one thing to be physically able to do a whole season, but what do you think this season has really said to the emotional capacity of this team?
Again, they're a tough group. I think that describes this group with what we lost production-wise, knowing that we weren't going to be able to replace that production. Not many teams can. How do we find a way to win just as many games and hopefully be in the same position to make a run at Omaha with the group that we have? In this group, that's what they're built on. Good old-fashioned hard work, staying strong during the season, eating well, getting their sleep. The whole goal here, we talked about back in August, our first meeting, August 19th, was we want to be at our best. We want to have our best velocity, our best bat speed. We want our bodies to feel the best when we get to June. And the only way to do that is to make those tough decisions. Don't be up really late at night. Don't be living on Franklin Street. You gotta decide what you want, and then you got to make those decisions to be able to get it. And they've done that. They have to continue to do that. But it was a tough stretch. Everybody has tough stretches though, right? Like, we didn't have to go out west, but we did. We had to fly 4 times. We'll go play at Cal next year. I don't believe in making excuses ever. So next year when we go to Cal, when we come back, we got to be able to figure out how to win the next game we play. We're not going to lose because we were on a West Coast trip. But our guys, early on, we started 2-4. We went on the road to Louisville. We went on the road to BC, tough, cold places. Then we had 3 home ACC series, and we had to go back on the road. And then knowing that we had our toughest road trip at the end, how are we going to do that, and how are we going to do down there? And I told him I got on the bus. I was like, man, I'm not letting you go home. It was dead silent. It's a competitive group. I don't need to say anything to them after a loss. They're the ones that they're more upset than I am. So I just reminded them, hey, you just came down here and won this series. And if it's a super regional, we would have celebrated a game too. So let's don't be Debbie Downers on the way back on this flight. Let's take a shower, move on, and let's start having fun now, because this should be the most fun. And they bought into that too. They've really bought into practicing at a really high level and trusting that what I tell them is, hey, if you do that and you work, you're not going to hear anything from us coaches. We're going to sit back during the game and we're just going to watch you play, maybe put on a play here or there, decide what changes to make. And they bought into that. They practice hard. They work hard. And if you watch us practice, they're focused. So that's a credit to the older guys and to our team in general. It's all them. They're the reason we are where we are.
Yeah, from seeing it up close, you're absolutely right how you guys approach it as a coaching staff. And I want to talk about the postseason, but I want to go back. Was there a specific moment or an event or something after the Stanford and Louisville series that sort of course corrected? Was there some grand speech by somebody? Was there players meeting? What changed the narrative there after you were 2-4, and you had some tough things coming up, to be able to push forward and have more success? I mean, you swept Wake, but you won all the other series and handled business. Was there a specific moment in that time?
There are probably more than one specific moment. I know the players got together after I met with them after we lost game 2 at BC, and I think that was a pretty powerful, strong meeting that they had from within. And we also had a powerful meeting from my meeting was a little bit, pretty direct about certain things, but I still love the group. And I kind of honestly felt like it was going to take a little while. I looked at the preseason rankings and I'm kind of like, man, could we get there? Maybe. I don't think we're there right now. When you have so many new faces that are going to have to play every day, you're going to have to rely on a lot of young arms. They're talented, but they've never pitched. How are the older arms going to handle potentially different roles? But I always felt like we were well led. It was just a different team, and every team takes. So that's the thing I enjoy the most about coaching, is every team's different. So how do we make this team get to where they can get potentially and maximize their potential? But they did have a meeting. I think it was led by Vandy and Knapp, and really kind of I target that game. Since that loss, I think we were just kind of tiptoeing around, and you'd have to talk to those guys because I wasn't in there. I didn't ask about it. But since that time, I feel like we've been much more aggressive. I felt like we were playing a little tight, top to bottom. And since then, we haven't been perfect by any means, but I feel like the team's played much freer during the games and been ultra aggressive on going after the game and going after the win and not looking back, and buying into who they need to be too. More coachable. When you fail, you become more coachable. And we had a lot of failure the first 3 weeks of the season. But I wouldn't point out, to anything in particular. I think that would be the main thing for me that the players probably took upon themselves. And they could tell you more about that than I could.
Yeah, I asked you after the game the other day, I guess it's Saturday at this point, it felt like there was more aggression on the base paths. You sending guys more often than not. Did you ever figure out, did you send Tyson on the tag from second? I would love to know if you watched that film, but it felt like from a coaching standpoint, you guys were being more aggressive as well. Your players were doing it, executing it, but it felt like you guys were there as well once that sort of shift started early in the season and run into late in the season.
Well, I've learned the hard way. For me personally, as a coach now, I don't want to look back and say, man, I should have done this or I should have done that. And you have to be, you can't fear failure. And, if that means advancing on a dirt ball, still in the base when you're down by 1, in my mind as a coach, if I'm thinking, well, if I'm ever going to say I should have done that, I got to put it on right then, and then whatever happens, happens. So I always said, like, okay, as I learned things more and more, I was in the dugout for those 2 national championships, been fortunate to be in the dugout with a lot of great teams. I always wanted to be aggressive, under control. We talk about like, okay, under control aggression, but like you cannot win championships and be a successful team if you're playing not to lose. You just have to go after the win, and whatever happens, it happens. And you won't regret it. I tell our guys, you're not going to regret it if you're being aggressive. You put in the work when the games start. Like you have to be aggressive. You have to go get it. And it's hitting a great example. We talk about you can't be afraid to go down swinging if you really feel like the pitch was a ball. And the guys, they bought into that, and they do the same thing. We just talked to them about, like, if you're prepared, if you're working your tail off, we use a Michael Jordan saying, hard work eliminates the fear of failure. It should. And we talk about it a lot. And that's what I want. I've always wanted our teams, if I was ever fortunate enough to be a head coach, it's hard. and when you fail, I played like you're sure not trying to fail. There's not one kid when they go out there, they're trying to fail. So as coaches, how can you help them get over the part of that? Because that's what we all deal with. We all have it, like, man, I'm getting ready to throw this 3-2 pitch with the bases loaded, like or 1-0 pitch, Dalton Pence. Well, go after him. Go right after him. And if he hits it in the gap, he hits it in the gap. But if you're going after him, you'll be happy that you went after him. You'll be able to live with the results a lot better instead of taking something off, trying to place the pitch and throwing it right down the middle with no life on the fastball. I feel like that's something that our guys are doing a good job. And that's, I learned a lot, 17, we hadn't been to a regional in 2 years. We didn't make it in 15 barely. We didn't make it in 16 barely. And we just dominated the whole season, and looking back on that team, there were a lot of guys that hadn't been in the postseason. And once we, I feel like they played like we have to win. We have to win. I explained to them, you really don't have to win. Because if you lose, we're going to wake up tomorrow and life's going to go on, so your chances of winning are way better if you can have that perspective, which our team does a good job. And we're going to do that. I mean, we're not going to be stupid about it and make bad decisions out of control, but we're going to play aggressive. And I want our guys to play free and easy. I want to have fun playing. That's why you play the game.
Alex and Jackson both told us, I don't exactly know which game it was after, that they did think once this team embraced their identity, they were able to play a little freer. As a coach, you've coached so many teams. How, I don't know if gratifying is the right word, but how is it to watch a team grow into their identity and then have that just increase their style of play?
It's awesome. That's what you're trying to get them to do. And the longer you coach, you hope that you keep yourself grounded from the coaching standpoint of why you coach and what you feel like when they get rewarded. And it should be about the players and watching them be happy that they won the series at Florida State, watching them celebrate that they're going to Omaha, because that's what ultimately my job is, to help them be successful and to help them win as many games as they can win. And every team has a different identity. They have to play a different way. Some teams you got to sit back. You don't need to put a sacrifice bunt on because somebody's getting ready to hit a 3-run home run. Or, we need to pitch hit a kid. We need to get another run. Okay. We need a safety squeeze. We need to try to get Hunter Stokely to second base and steal, when nobody thinks he's going to steal. But every team has to be a team now. I don't care how talented you are. I don't think if it's a bunch of individuals caring about themselves, they're going to have success when it's all said and done, at least not sustained success. So that is a standard here, that don't come here if the team isn't going to come first, which the older players know, and they let the young players know right away. So that's good. That's established. But every team's got to find their own identity, and that's a credit to them. They figured out, hey, here's how we have to play. And for us to reach our goals, everybody's got to buy into it. And if you don't buy into it, if I'm a player and I'm older, it's either I'm going to get you out of here, or I'm going to go upstairs to Coach Forbes' office and tell him to get you out of here. And if I go up to Coach Forbes' office, you're done, basically. So, and we haven't had any of that. And that's a credit to that locker room.
In that similar vein, I think one of the best things that people also don't realize about college baseball is you guys are still coaches. You're not managers until you get to the professional level. And we talked a lot about this with you last year, that part of your job is not just to make the decisions, the pitching changes, who's playing where on the field, but to coach this group of young men to work together and just get better as the season has gone on. And how have you seen, you said each group is different, how have you seen this group evolve and grow together, not just as players on the field, but humans off the field?
Yeah, that's the best. That's the most gratifying thing you can do, in my opinion, as a coach, or even if you were a manager. I would guess to say that people asked about Joe Torre. He wasn't just, a great manager, but he was a manager that cared about me, right? Like, probably number one, our relationships were relationship driven here. We use that word love all the time. There are players that don't play a ton that should feel the same as the player that has played every day, like Luke Stevenson, or the culture's not good. It's that makes a big difference. That's what develops chemistry. That word can be overused, but you're not going to have a team that's together if the team doesn't come first and the individual doesn't come first, and people don't care about each other, and the bullpen catcher is not treated just as good as the 3-hole hitter or the Friday night pitcher. So that's how it is here. By no means is our program perfect or are we perfect, but the players, they know how much they're cared about, not just from coaches but support staff, and we have so many people that help them be successful. But they also know that everything that we're doing hopefully will help them be successful when they're done with baseball. That's where the team aspect comes in. And that's what I talk to them about all the time. That's what we talk to them about all the time. You're going to have a team when you have a family. That's your team. You're going to have a team when you're in business. That's your team. Whatever it is. And what kind of teammate are you going to be? What kind of leader are you going to be? This stuff about, I'm just not made to be a leader. Well, learn to be a leader. Everybody can learn to be that. So, that's been awesome, because these guys, we have a lot of leaders down there that I think are going to be really successful in whatever they do. And that's what's most important, in my opinion. Obviously, we want to win ACC championship. We want to win a regional or a super regional, win a national championship. But at the end of the day, that stuff fades. But, so-and-so calling me on a Wednesday night that played here 10 years ago, or running into a former player that I coached at Winthrop that lives in Miami now, that just shows up and wants to say hello. Those are the things that you just can't put a price tag on those.
Speaking of a guy that didn't play a lot, Sawyer Black obviously was injured. He showed some talent. You told us about it in the post game, but walk us through the decision to put him in that position, and then for him to do what he did on Saturday in Florida State.
I mean, it's really simple. I mean, it's Coach Jackson. I mean, we're like, okay, obviously, who matches up the best? Coach Jackson, like, put Sawyer in there. And I'm like, well, do you really think he's ready? Because, I don't want to set a kid up for failure. If you want to try to put every young man in a position for them to succeed. And Terry Joe said from the get-go, this kid has a really high pain tolerance. He's going to be to come back earlier than a lot of kids. Sawyer had told me, hey, Coach, I'm ready. I thought he looked like he was close, but, I mean, you're talking about a kid that he's getting ready to face a dude that's 95 to 98, touching 99. And I was like, do you really think he's ready? And Coach Jackson was like, I think he's ready. So me and Coach Weirs were like, well, Coach Jackson feels that strongly about it. He's been in the cages with these guys, because the rotation we always do with BP, Coach Jackson's always in the cages with the machine where the velocity is. So it was simple. And all the credit goes to Scott Jackson, because I had no idea who I thought was the best matchup. Well, I mean, obviously, I thought Sawyer was one of our best fastball hitters. I just wasn't sold that he was ready, but he was obviously ready, because that ball was a moonshot.
100%. It was it launched way out there in that ball game. I mean, you're at the point where you expect Gavin Gallagher to do that kind of stuff, and because he continually does it. But for Black to do it, looking ahead to postseason, the way the ACC tournament shakes out, you get a Friday, Saturday, Sunday potentially set up. I would assume, or you can correct us, that your rotation, at least on the first two, is going to stay the same. But how many tweaks and pivots will you make in the postseason, or are you satisfied with what you've seen after 51 ball games here to roll with what you've got?
Yeah, we're still going to need some guys to step up to win a championship, because Gavin can't go 4 for 4 every game. And we've been pretty balanced. You look at the weekend, Luke didn't have his normal weekend, but other guys picked Luke up. He caught his tail off. The rotation will stay the same. Besides not winning the overall ACC championship, I like playing Friday, to be honest with you. I mean, we didn't throw the game by any means, did we, against Florida State? But I like Knapp to go Friday, potentially Friday. And if you decide in the regional that Knapp doesn't go game 1, if he goes Thursday, then he gets almost too much. So Knapp will go game 1 on Friday. DeCarroll will go game 2. Houck right now will go game 3 unless we decide to use Houck with a single elimination out of the bullpen. Obviously, losing a guy like Matty Mathias, is shown. We're relying on some really young arms. We need a Folger Boaz to pitch well in the ACC tournament and the postseason. Chewy, and Olin Johnson. So the tweaks may be a little more matchup potentially. If at this point in the season, Walker McDuffie is our closer, but he may not be at a close because he may have already thrown a certain amount of innings. Ryan Lynch has been really good. But the goal is going to be to have Walker McDuffie out there at the end. And then if not, it'll be more of a matchup game at times like it has been, maybe in 2008 when we would match up with Brian Moran, who you had on here, and then Colin Bates, and then Rob Wooten, because we didn't have Andrew Kerrigan. So I think that would be the only tweak. We continue to work positionally hard because a guy can get hurt. We've been fortunate, knock on wood. I don't see any other changes. I think Sawyer might settle in there. We're going to try to get him as many at-bats as we can against left-handed pitching. We're going to do some live stuff the next 2 days. But we'll still match up here and there with the right matchup.
I mean, you only use 6 pitchers in Omaha, which correct me in Tallahassee, which correct me if I'm wrong, can be both a blessing that, Jake Knapp, complete game. Jason DeCaro, almost complete game. And maybe not exactly a curse, but you didn't get some of those arms that you might need down the line in the regional, in the super, in Omaha, like bringing Cam Padgett in that Florida State Omaha game. How are you going to kind of, balance the weight of I want my starters to make sure they're getting what they need, but also I need these guys to pitch in tougher situations, in different environments like Durham, so that they're ready to go down the line when their name is called?
Yeah, you just do the best you can. That's where the preparation comes in. You try to simulate it, make it as hard as you can. We'll have a group throw live today against our hitters and try to, simulate it as best as we can. But starting pitching is the name of the game. So we want those guys to go deep. If those guys don't pitch, they don't pitch. But we win, right? That's the way I look at it. And then we'll have them prepared. So if we need them, we need Cam Padgett, we need Bolton, we need Boaz, we need Olin. Well, they'll be ready, and they just haven't pitched live in a game, but they pitched live out here, and they have to trust that preparation. That's all you can do. We're not going to pitch somebody just to pitch them. We're at the point of our season where whoever we pitch, whoever we play, we are trying to win the game. And that's just what we're going to do. But those guys will be ready, and those guys, they'll be ready for their moment through pitching against our hitters. Our hitters are pretty good. Folger Boaz has got to face Sawyer Black. He's got to face Sam Angelo. He's got to face Ron Kellis. He's got to face Dice. Same thing with Padgett. So that's what we'll do. We'll have them ready for the ACC tournament. We're going to prep them a little more, too, for shorter stints, instead of long stints.
Without, the class schedule and with the ACC tournament and then the regional, and luckily the ACC tournament being back in Durham, does this change your practice at all with how A, you schedule the practice, or B, how you may specifically focus on, okay, we want to focus on dirt ball reads, we want to focus on drag balls, we want to focus on the relieving pitchers getting their routines in? Does the postseason change any of that emphasis at all?
We still do a lot of what we always do here. All of our practices are centered around our being fundamentally sound in defense, number one, and then on the bases, obviously, small ball, bunt. So we practice that almost every day. You just have now a more you can manage the day easier. Now I can manage the day easier. The guys have to make sure that they stay in a routine. They're a pretty disciplined group, but like if we're not meeting until 1:30. So hey, obviously you can catch up on your sleep, but don't wake up at 1 o'clock. Get up at 10:30, go get you a good breakfast, be fueled. I feel like this group does a good job of that. But we have a little more time to re-emphasize those things. So we'll just continue to do those and work on those dirt ball reads and work on first movement against lefty. Nothing changes. That's just kind of standard here. Practice is extremely important. But when you do have a longer layoff, Grace, what you do is you try to build it up basically. So nothing yesterday, lift today, a little lighter practice, only in the cages, some live to hitters, pretty intense practice tomorrow, our first one since Saturday. A lot of defense, a lot of ground balls, a lot of throwing, defending first and third, defending safeties, executing safety bunts, executing suicides, those type of things. Wednesday, and some more live tomorrow. Wednesday, a little tapered off, but similar to Tuesday. Thursday, a lighter practice, and then tee it up Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We've already got it mapped out. I mean, obviously it can change with weather, but we did that yesterday, got it all done. Get the times. We'll go like afternoon, then we'll go morning. I can help them stay in a routine too if I want to. So we'll start tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Last question for 10 o'clock. That's like late. I've been up 4 hours.
Not late for these guys, Tommy.
Last question for me. Let you get out of here. You've got a few things to do. We understand, but give me your wow moment on the season. And you got 51 games worth. I'll tell you mine. And I mentioned it earlier. That was Sawyer Black's home run. That was, to me,
that would have to be one of them. Like that's kind of this team. And then I see the looks on everybody's faces. Lee Sowers hadn't played all year. He goes in Virginia Tech, the team's going crazy. That's when you know you got a great group, and you got guys that aren't pouting and guys that are good dudes. Because I tell our team all the time, if your teammates are pulling for you, that is so powerful. Verse, we have a saying here, like, who's the easiest guy to point out in a room? Well, it's the blank hole, the a-hole, the guy that you can name him right away. So you don't want to be that guy. And if you're a great teammate and you get your opportunity and you haven't had it, well, your teammates are going to be like, heck yeah, dude. They're going to be pulling like heck for you. And that's how this team's been pretty much the whole season. But wow moment probably for me was Jake Knapp's complete game. Wow. Like this kid walked off crushing, I hit it, but deep down I'm like, man, is there any way we're still going to be able to get to Omaha? We're going to start 3 freshmen potentially on the weekend. I felt like we were loaded positionally, but how are we going to get to where we need to get without losing our horse? And then for him to sit beside me literally every single pitch, every game, and then to come back. 2 reasons it was a wow moment for me. Number one, he showed I'm the best pitcher in this league, right? And he also threw a complete game in one of the hardest places to throw a complete game. I told Jake, I said, Jake, I was pitching coach here. I've coached some good ones. I don't remember anybody's done that at Florida State except maybe Austin Love. Did he throw a complete game? I think he might have, or close to it. No, he didn't. Caden O'Brien finished that game. We did it at Georgia Tech. So, but there's a lot of wow moments for me, but that would be one that's because I didn't know. I'm like, okay, we've been on the road, but we haven't been in this environment on the road this season with this team. How are they going to respond? In practice on Wednesday night, I could kind of tell, okay, these dudes, they ain't scared. They're ready to go. I'm excited to watch them. And Jake set the tone. He set the tone for the whole weekend. So that would be – I hope I have some more, though. I want some big wow moments, some Bosch magic maybe coming up, or we've had some great games over in Durham. I know that too.
Well, I only have 2 more for you, and then we'll let you get out of here. But last season, Gavin with his monster grand slam against LIU, I think he really stepped up as okay, we have the Bosch magic, this big game player. He can step up on that big stage. Is there anyone on your team that you think might be giving us some Bosch magic going forward?
I think they're all capable. I really do. We're going to have someone that you're not expecting, to do it Gavin, okay, how many moon bombs had he hit last year like that. Not many no doubters. You know, obviously Vance hit no doubters. Alberto hit no doubters. Parks Harbor hit no doubters. But Gavin, you know, his power wasn't in that league, but that was a no doubter. So, but I could also see a guy like Madera, you know, out of the blue, just hitting a home run. You know, those are the things, and somebody on the mound that it takes somebody that hasn't done like sometimes anything spectacular, because your guys got to be your guys. As Coach Williams said, your players got to play and your dudes got to be your dudes. But somebody else to win a championship has to do something maybe that they haven't done. It could be a big pitch hit. It could be a suicide squeeze in a big situation, or it could be a pitcher. Now they pitched a little bit, they get hot, and all of a sudden, boom, they stabilize everything. So I can't predict who it's going to be, but it'll be somebody, hopefully.
And then you talked about fun activities on your week to just, you know, keep all your team together, keep your guys having fun while playing baseball. What is your favorite, like, fun out of baseball activity to do with them?
Man, we've done some good team movies, and we've also done some really bad ones. So bad at the movie theater that I just walk out and the guys get the biggest kick, because I'm like, I'm not wasting my 2.5 hours watching this terrible movie. But we now use football has been very gracious to us. We're going over there tonight to watch a team movie. Guys pick it. It's interesting to me too. Like, they're young, way younger. Like, half of them last year had not seen Remember the Titans. And I'm like, how have you not seen this movie? And they loved it. So I'll be interested to see what we put together tonight. But I like doing that with them. You know, I like going, if we can, go to a place like a Frankie's where there's arcades and go-karts, and hopefully we won't get kicked off the go-kart track for colliding into each other. But I like to do things where nobody can get hurt, because I'm not taking them to a trampoline park. You know, I'm not taking them to Top Golf, where guys are going to swing as hard as they can, throw their backs out. So honestly, Grace, anything, but I like the movies, just because we're all together. There's laughing going on. We usually go to a team dinner and then we'll do a movie after. Kind of relaxing too.
Yeah, like, I mean,
I'll cut my ringer off and don't look at my phone.
Really? Even with transfer portal season, you cut your ringer off?
Well, yeah, I cut my ringer off. I might look at my phone.
Scott, it's always a pleasure. It was a enlightening trip down to Florida State to see how your team came through in that environment. I'll tell you what, the Bosch is special, and it has some special moments at Florida State environment consistently, except when Tyson Bass evacuated the building with the bomb.
Yeah, that's what that's a goal. Y'all have helped tremendously. So I want to thank y'all on here. That was a long trip for you all, and y'all brought us a ton of recognition, and we need it. We need this place to turn into Florida State, and it should, because Coach Fox sent me an email that looked at Florida State since 2006 and us, and we've been better. I mean, just look at it, and but the crowd helps you win. I mean, it helps you win, and when you don't have people in the seats, you don't have that home field advantage. So, I challenge all Tar Heel fans that love Tar Heel baseball. Try to pack the place. Try to be loud. You don't have to be Bush, but you can be one-sided. That's for sure.
It was
right.
So it was
it was one-sided.
It was one-sided. All right. Well, we appreciate you taking time. We'll see you Friday.
Sounds great. Look forward to it. Have a great day.
Shout out to head coach Scott Forbes for joining us here on This Week in UNC Baseball, May 19th, ahead of the ACC Tournament that starts for everybody else on Tuesday. It starts for North Carolina on Friday night. We'll talk about that just in a second with Grace. But Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com, sponsors of the show, great friends of Inside Carolina, and great place for you to get all your Carolina swag, including those North Carolina baseball jerseys that are extremely hot right now, not only on the market, but on the backs of the Tar Heel players as they come off the win in the heat in Tallahassee and head to the ACC Tournament in the postseason. So Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com, alumni-owned, operated, great folks. Grace, North Carolina, to Forbes' point there in what he just said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is about as good as you can get for a North Carolina rotation that's been set with Knapp DeCaro, and like you said, if Houck's not used on Saturday. But I think this sets up well for the Tar Heels, even though, and we've said it before, and I'm not speaking for Coach Forbes or anybody, but I don't think the ACC tournament is remotely close to as important as a regional, super regional, and the national or the NCAA tournament. But your thoughts on Carolina's role here and Carolina's road here for this ACC championship in Durham?
Well, I think that Florida State was the perfect way for them to end the regular season. Even with that loss on Saturday, the momentum, the confidence in both their pitching and their ability to win with a station-to-station offense, or to try to come back or close it out with a really big hit. I think that's huge for them going forward. But to your point, and to Forbes's point, I do think that the Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday or maybe Saturday is really good, because especially with that exam break and losing one of those state games, to get them on the right track and to go from a Florida State series that was Thursday, Friday, Saturday to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which was presumably what a regional would be, I think will be huge for them. And I think for the pitching staff, and he talked about it a little bit, is you can kind of use it like a lab. He told us after that Saturday game in Tallahassee, he said, I mean, obviously no regrets about putting Seagraves in. He needs to know what it's like to pitch in a big situation like that. He needs to get accustomed to that, because they're going to need the guys like Cam Seagraves, Olin Johnson, Cam Padgett, Folger Boaz, all of these guys to be in bigger spots down the line. Because if for some reason you go into a loser's bracket in a regional, you're gonna need those arms. If you go into Omaha, the end of that Florida State game, I'm pretty sure the pitcher that closed out Omaha for the Tar Heels was Cam Padgett. So you need some of those guys to be able to perform. And when you have starters like Jake Knapp, like Jason DeCaro, that can throw for that many innings and for that well, you don't want to stop them when they're on a roll. But you need to make sure that you can get some of these guys work. And I know he'll do it in practice against live arms. That'll be really good for them, or live bats. But I think giving, I don't know, say that you have Jason exit in the 6th or the 5th, a little bit earlier than you would want him to. Then you have Olin go 1 inning, Folger 1 inning, Chewy 1 inning, Walker McDuffie, Ryan Lynch 1 inning, something like that, so that you get these arms work, so that down the line they're like, oh my gosh, they don't go, I haven't pitched in 3 weeks and I'm coming in to face Tennessee or Ole Miss or whatever SEC team UNC is going to be saddled with in the regional. Something like that. I think the ACC tournament can be a really good place to do that, because you're putting them in an unfamiliar environment. There's going to be a ton of people, a ton of eyes, and it gives a lot of these younger pitchers, or even guys like Folger and Olin, who have pitched before, but they haven't pitched in that big a spot, time to settle in.
Yeah, I think, and I mentioned this on the message boards, and there was a lot of discussion, getting Seagraves at, yes, you'd like to see Seagraves get an out, not give up a couple hits and all, but it pays it forward to get him in that environment against the Florida State team. And folks, I'm not understating the environment at Florida State. I mean, that place was on fire, especially when they started playing well. I did mention, I think Gavin's home run on Thursday sort of gave everybody a moment that was in the building wearing garnet and gold. And then Tyson Bass's home run cleared the place on Friday. But Saturday, it was on fire there. It was a high leverage situation. So I think, yes, you want to win that game. Yes, you want to win the ACC tournament, but there were bigger goals here. Grace, just looking ahead to the ACC tournament, obviously you cover the other teams a lot more, but Carolina's got Virginia as the 6 in that spot. What's Carolina looking at Friday, potentially Saturday, and also potentially Sunday? I see some rematches on the horizon, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the way the ACC tournament has shaken out, it'll be interesting this year. It's the first time that they've done this single elimination bracket style and not the pool play. And so UNC will be facing the winner of the Notre Dame. So the winner of the Notre Dame BC game will play Virginia. And with the double bye, UNC will be facing the winner of that game, which will either be Virginia or Notre Dame or BC. So they've only played BC. Notre Dame is on a tear as of recently. Their catcher, Carson Tinney, I'm if he's been playing like this all season, I think he definitely could have had a run at ACC Player of the Year. I think since midway through the season, he's been hitting like 450. He is on fire. And this Notre Dame team, from the D1 people that I've talked to and everything, like they have a shot to be one of those dark horses. It might not be that they have the talent to go super deep in like the NCAA postseason, but maybe like Duke last year, they might have the talent to make a run in the ACC tournament. And it's the exact same thing with Virginia. There's a reason that Virginia was ranked 2 in like the preseason polls. Now, take that into consideration that number 1 was A&M, and they might not even make the NCAA tournament. But they have the pieces to be good. Jay Woolfolk, one of their starters, has been on fire as of recently. Harrison Didewick, who they had pinned as like, this is the guy to watch. He hit terribly the first half of the season, and he's really coming into his own. And so they are also a team that has the pieces to just, if it all comes together and it all clicks for them, they can do some damage. I'm not saying that if they play that UNC would definitively win or Virginia would definitively win or whatever. It will be a good ball game for whoever team that UNC is saddled with. And I mean, whoever team has to face Jake Knapp, have fun with that one. That'll be a really tough battle for you because someone, Jake Knapp, just silenced a really, really good Florida State team who has Alex Lodis and a few guys who I think are going to be All-Americans or, big running for the Golden Spikes Award, stuff like that. And he showed them I can throw 9 complete innings and you guys can't really touch me. So it'll be a challenge for whoever they play. And then down the line, they might be facing Florida State again. Florida State's in that 2 seed. If they win, Florida State wins. They could see a rematch there. Georgia Tech is the number 1 seed. NC State is the number 4 seed. They'll be playing. They may play each other. There could be a rematch there with State. Maybe come back from that game that didn't happen. And Georgia Tech, I know people on the message boards were like, what? Georgia Tech won the ACC? Which is a good point. They were kind of the dark horse to just jump up there via conference winning percentages, and Florida State playing less games, NC State playing less games. I do think, in my opinion, NC State has probably the easiest path through the tournament. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying they do. And Georgia Tech as a 1 seed is just super interesting to me. They do have some fantastic pieces. Drew Burress, obviously, he's really dynamic. He just won ACC Player of the Week. It would be really, really fun to see him go up against whatever UNC arms would be on the mound for that. But I don't know. This will be really interesting. I don't remember them ever doing single elimination in the ACC tournament. Then again, I haven't watched ACC baseball for my entire life. But I think that this can be a really good way for this team to just try some new things out and really get them as prepared as possible for the real thing that matters. After Selection Monday, it's go time for the NCAA postseason.
Indeed, that is Grace Nugent talking about it. The ACC tournament is a new format, and with the unbalanced schedule, Carolina could potentially face teams they haven't played all year. You get out of you've got to beat teams 3 and 4 times a year. And the best part of it is you get out of pool play, which is such a waste of time. So the ACC tournament and the ACC may have figured out something good for this tournament. Starting on Tuesday, Carolina, of course, plays on Friday against Notre Dame, BC, or Virginia. Any of those teams it wouldn't surprise me if they faced any of those teams. But like you mentioned, Grace, they're going to have to face Jake Knapp. Jason DeCaro will throw on Saturday if that's needed. And then Aiden Houck. A lot of people have been down on Aiden Houck a little bit. What he was able to do at Florida State, he gave up 3-run homer early on Saturday, but settled in and put up some zeros. So Carolina's in a good spot going into the ACC tournament. But Selection Monday at noon is where it's at, a week from today, and then the fun starts. Grace, it's been a fun regular season. We've got a little bit more baseball to talk about. Could be a little, could be a lot, but whatever it'll be interesting to cover for Inside Carolina. Shout out to Johnny T-shirt and everybody that pays attention.